start a new recording. Okay. And I will share my screen once people are all settled. Amy, we're close to a complete team, but I'm not seeing Paula having made it in. You see her on your squares, your Hollywood squares?
No,
Hmm.
give her a minute.
Yeah.
Um, I saw her a moment ago on the.
There's Paula. All right. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to your second round here. I'm Jason. I'll let Amy and Paula introduce themselves. I have started to record the session, so you are being recorded. I wanted to be transparent about that. We were asked to do that, and I'll share the screen here as soon as Amy starts to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Amy Maynard. I am the evaluator from California, and I've been writing these worksheets for about 6 years now.
And Paula?
And I'm Paula Crawford. I'm the former project director in North Carolina and worked with the EBP worksheet for about 10 years while I was there, and now working with Sigma Associates as an evaluator.
Thanks, Paula. And I'm Jason Torres Altman. Been an evaluator for, I think, about 10 to 12 years, many different states. And I'm partially responsible for the EBPD worksheet looking like it does now. So you can sling your arrows towards me during this session, and we'll see if we can make adjustments. No. We had, for those of you who are have used both the old and the new version. I was a author of some of the drafted changes for that newer version. So we thought, because we have this experience and not everybody does, that we might just facilitate a conversation about it when we're starting to plan this thing for the October meeting, and not as a from a place where we position ourselves as experts. We actually came into the last one with like 10 things. And in the room that day, we developed this into 16. And so I don't know, maybe by the end of the day, we could have 20 or something like that. We'll just see where we go. And I think with that, Amy, Paula, you want me to get started? And can one of you kind of monitor chat for me since I'm doing the screen sharing and can barely see anything? And also, I just want to make sure, tell me if you can't see the screen big enough. I'm trying not to do presentation mode just because who knows what could happen. Everything look okay?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, we did this. Great. We're already on to number one. Okay, so take note of your sections that you might not have to start from scratch on every single year, right? Couple that come to mind here is your personnel, right? So your personnel section, you may have to make changes to it, but you don't have to make complete adjustments every time. And another area might be, the place where you put some of your evidence that you've based your whole project around, right? If you're not making wholehearted changes to the way your programming is going, you may not need to go in that section every year. As you work with your teams, like among your teams, maybe color code your sections differently so that you can tell, like, hey, this is a section where we're going to be, having to start from scratch every year. This is new. It's going to be requiring new data that's coming in, right? Some of your evaluation sections might be like that. And these are some sections like the one I mentioned that we probably can kind of go forward with changes only. So number one, and Amy, Paula, slow me down if you think you need to, but we got 16 to get to. Take advantage of the ability to segment your PD and your coaching. So this was actually very intentional because the old EBPD worksheet, the rubric, didn't really it didn't specify it as directly as the new one does, and that's something we tried to change. So take advantage of the fact that these things are in different sections to allow yourself to really think hard about the story that you specifically want to tell about your coaching, for example, right? Um, Rather than kind of having everything get muddied together and we do it all as a package, you're able to really focus in on the types of things for all of those different asks that are in the coaching section of the EBPD worksheet about exactly what you're doing around your coaching and exactly what you might be doing around maybe more general professional development, the training you might give to every educator in the school or something as your coaches go out and work maybe specifically with certain individuals. Share your worksheet. And I have worked with teams and states where this was actually kind of not something that was routinely done, right? It was a one-way street. So programming teams, coaches, maybe school administrators, all of the data went one way into the SPDIG leadership team who completed that worksheet, sent it on to OSEP, and nobody ever got to see how everything threaded together. Nobody ever got to see like the tangible result of all of that work that they had contributed to. So, um, just an idea to like, have the EBPD worksheet be a part of a facilitated conversation around data with your coaches or something like that, right? If you're working with contractors who are out in different regions of the state, it's a great way to be able to explain to them all of the aspects of the project, not just the individual part that they might work on. Paula, I love your slides, by the way. These are so great. Map all of your items to specific sections on your surveys, or this could be interviews as well, but a lot of us use surveys when we're trying to go canvass large numbers of people, and often that data ends up on our EBPD worksheets, right? So figure out where everything fits, create an actual map. 2 columns. This is the EBPD section. These are the survey questions that we have, and these are the surveys that they are on. You can figure out where you may not have something, right? You may be submitting an EBPD worksheet that might lack a little evidence directly from teachers, for example, or from administrators that actually say that we believe that what you're offering to us in this area is of high quality, right? So make sure you've made that map because it allows you to, number one, be more specific and, deliberate with the questions that you're actually asking on your surveys, right? You may be able to remove questions that aren't necessary. If the questions really have no merit or meaning to the EBPD worksheet, it is possible the way the EBPD worksheet is developed that they may not be that beneficial for the project in general for operations or anything like that, right? And then you're able to make new items for the areas where you'd like a little bit more evidence. So just simply making a 2-column map can be a big deal. And this is something I'm sure everybody who's ever sat down to start to work on the rubric has felt. You already asked me this, didn't you? Don't be afraid to say, as shown in section B/2 or something like that, with maybe a small summary. Give the page number where you may have said the exact thing, right? There's no need for you as the writer, and certainly no need to expect of the reader to read through nearly carbon copied text in different sections of the document. And Amy and Paula, do I have number 6? This is where I step away after this one, right?
I think
Or
I'm going to
7? You pick
yeah,
up? Okay.
yeah, Jason. Thank you.
Yep.
So number 6 is, really important in the fact that this worksheet is so massive. So use concise language and specifically address those items that are required for each section so that you can, the reviewers who are going to read this, that's probably an important thing for them as well. So you don't want to be redundant and you want to be as concise as possible. And then number 7 is this was really important with the team that I worked with at the state because we had a number of literacy consultants who were working on the project and math consultants. And we divided up the sections of our evidence-based practice worksheet so that it was a team effort. And then we placed reminders monthly on the calendar to revisit that throughout the year, to update it regularly with current evidence of the initiative implementation so that by the time we got to, February, March, April, we didn't have to really recollect from memory what it was that we had done throughout the year and leave out important things that really were good evidence of our work. And number 8, I think this was one that someone contributed, and Jason and Amy, if you'd chime in with me here with explaining this one, when writing with other staff, temporarily changed the language to fit your project. Do you remember what that one was, Jason?
Yeah,
I
Amy, I
can
think knows.
I can add to that one. This is one that's been a big issue in my state. So there are certain terminology in the worksheet that doesn't match my specific state's project, and that presents problems when I'm sharing the worksheet. So whether it's like the word training, for example, we do not say training in our state. Now it's always professional learning. Even professional development is not really considered acceptable, as well as like the titles. We don't have trainers. We have, statewide implementation coaches that do that, type of training. So just because those words can make it difficult to have conversations around the actual content of the worksheet, I've gone through and typed it out, like typed all the elements out and just replaced the words with the ones that make sense in the context for my state. Otherwise, we get hung up on the terminology and it's hard to get past that. And then I go back when I'm, preparing this for submitting to OSAP, and I change those words back to what OSAP wants them to be. So that is my suggestion there. Jason, do you have anything else you want to?
Nope. It sounds like, strong reason to maybe consider an OSEP version and a project internal version of the same document. One written specifically for each audience with all of the same content, but those little changes that you mentioned.
Thanks for sharing that. I remember now, and that makes perfect sense because, yes, professional learning is a much more long-term and involved goal than training workshops and all that type of thing. So we had some of that as well. Thank you, Amy and Jason. All right, and then the next one, if teams complete the different components of the work, and then they trade sections of the worksheet to review before the final submission so that a second set of eyes on it can make sure that the communication is clear, complete, and concise, as well as consistent throughout. So that's another team effort, sharing the work and making certain that you're communicating clearly to those people who are going to be receiving the evidence-based practice worksheet to review, pardon me. And then number 10 was remember the program measure targets increase yearly, and not every item needs to be a 4 in year 2. So pace yourself and make sure that you're not overstating what you feel like you've accomplished, and know that in year 2 you still have years 3, 4, and 5 to reach that 4. So that's just something that is important to think about as you're completing the ratings. And Amy, were you going to take it from here?
Sure, I can. This was added in DC by someone attending our session to eat lots of candy while completing. And now that we're in the holidays, I know we all have way too much candy around our desks and offices. So there, hopefully you'll still have some left. use a Google Doc to tag other editors. This is something maybe I think Jason may have put this one in here because I know he's tagged me on a Google Doc before. I haven't done this as much. Jason, do you want to suggest this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way. The one thing that becomes very difficult is depending on the number of partners you may have involved, but it may be an enormous amount with a SPDIC, is you may be trying to
Whoops.
be,
Oh,
yeah, am I back, y'all? Sorry, I had a,
you're back.
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to quick turn off that Bluetooth on my phone. That was embarrassing. And I will make sure that doesn't happen. A call came in. I think it's about my car. I hope it's good news. But yeah, so as the team gets bigger, as you're trying to be collaborative and welcoming everybody into the EBPD tent or whatever, right? Version control becomes a real problem. So what I've typically done in the past is worked in Google Docs, use those tags, those little app things that you can do in Google Docs to get certain individuals' attention specifically to where it needs to. The great thing about that is you can also kind of have a little bit of control over who might be able to see it at certain times, right? There's certain people who might be involved in the project or in the state office that you don't necessarily want seeing draft items. So that's probably enough there.
All right, number 13, use exemplars from the SIG Network website. There's that rubric, but that is so minimal. I found it's really helpful to go and look at completed versions on the website. Just keep in mind that they might be at a different stage in their project. They might be, I think, in implementation year 5, and you're only in implementation year 2. So again, like don't expect that you have to have everything 100% developed at a 4. But they are available on the SIG network, and that's really helpful. Number 14, hold back. You don't need to tell everything. You don't need to attach documents. I initially thought we had to attach a bunch of stuff, and then later I had a project officer tell me, no, don't give us all this extra stuff. My goal is really for our newest SPDIC to keep this document shorter. Going back to, I think it was number 2 or 3 in terms of, sharing your worksheet with your team. It's hard to do that when it's 70, 80 pages long. Then you don't want to give people this book that they have to read and discuss with you, right? So there are a lot of benefits to trying to keep it more concise and just shorter and not feel like you have to dump everything in there you can, hoping that something hits, right? So
That,
again,
that was something we laughed about in October, right? I think wasn't everybody throwing around their largest page limit they could remember from the EBPD
That's
worksheet
funny.
over the years? I had one above 70. That was not a good score. Lower the better, right? It's like a golf thing.
scores the shortest page counts.
Oh, that's a good idea.
All right. And this I think also came up in October, a recommendation to be an external reader for OSEP, just to get a better understanding of what OSEP is looking for. So Sarah Allen, who I think is she
Yeah, Sarah's
here?
on the call. Oh, Sarah,
Sarah's
feel
here.
free
I
to
see
add
you.
more if you want to, but no pressure
Yeah,
to have to.
there's the contact. Oh, did we miss 16?
Is one hidden?
It's just numbered wrong.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Oh, yeah, 16, 17 would be the start of our new ones. Okay, here we
Okay.
go.
So check in more frequently so you don't have to, so updates don't happen all at once. This goes back to not doing it all at the very end, having the time, sometimes the rest of our APRs we don't do until after that February 28th deadline. But for this one, usually we know a lot because it's about the process more than the data. So we can fill in a lot as we go and check in with our team and, get that work done before that crunch for the APR.
And I think especially Amy too, there, as you think of some of your other performance measures, there is the requirement that you wait till February 28th, right? There are other measures for which you cannot start before that, as far as doing your calculations and beginning to build your narrative, any kind of imagery that might be associated with those results, right? And like Amy said, this is one that you can kind of get ahead of and be working on throughout the year so that it's ready or close to ready once that February 28th date starts. And you suddenly have to shift a lot of attention towards some of those data sources that you were waiting for that period to close for.
So
All
those
right.
are our 16. I think before we ask people if they have recommended
Mhm.
additions, does anyone have questions about any of the 16 items we raced through? Feel free to speak or put it in the chat.
How are we looking in the
I
chat?
don't see anything in the chat. So,
Okay.
all right, then, additional tips. What did we not
Challenge,
say?
challenge to the group. Can we get to 20?
Um, this is Cheryl. I don't have an additional tip, but I'd like to go back to the one about attaching the documents. Now,
Yeah, let's see here.
I heard that they don't want them. Apparently, our program officers have always wanted them. But what I found over in the past is there's been a time when that was the only place where we could go back and find something. Because the reality of working with a State Department of Education or any institution really is that occasionally there are massive losses of information and data on their shared drives. And sometimes I have been the only one that has something,
Hmm.
that is critical. I kind of feel like I'm a drive over here myself, with all this stuff that I keep. And occasionally, if something was lost, someone would have the evidence-based professional development worksheet with with the surveys and all the other kinds of attachments that really were critical for the program. And so there is something to be said for a place where everything does reside.
Yeah, and I think I would add, we've had several different project officers, but they certainly all have different
Yeah.
preferences to these things. So some might want attachments in them, and others, the only thing we've attached has been the fidelity tool for that
Mhm.
2A. So definitely, check with your project officer if you're used to attaching
Right.
things and suddenly don't want to.
And if they don't want you to attach, those things to your evidence-based PD worksheet, have backups.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Cheryl, I turned yours into a 17 anyway. What do you think of the looks of that? But I think you make a good point, right? Like as a central repository for things that are critical to this project, right? If we lost this information, these results, where would we be? Well, maybe that's a sign that it's met the bar for inclusion in the EBPD worksheet, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. I know there's a lot of experience on this call. What are some other strategies that y'all have used to be able to get to the finish line, which with what is really kind of it can be an enormous undertaking each reporting year. I'm very curious to hear what others have to say.
Well, I'll jump in again. I'm thinking back to the first time this came out and we had to do it. I did it. I mean, they said, okay, you do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did it. And then I smartened up and I said, I think this would be better if we divide up, and the person who's the lead on coaching would take that particular section and do it. And then we'd all look at it, and see if we needed to add something or whatever. And that gave everyone on the team became invested in it. And I think it was much better than just, especially, I muddled through somehow, the first time and got it done. But I really felt that it was better done and better for the team if everyone had a stake in it.
I love it. That's great. I just want to recognize that Courtney, from the great state of Wisconsin, has her hand raised. I grew up in Osceola, Wisconsin, so I have lots of respect.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I haven't yet done a dig annual performance report or any sort of reporting, and I do take the lead for the state education agency in Wisconsin to draft the annual performance report under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. So it's another standardized report. And one of the things that I share with my staff is that to conceptualize it as report world and then program world or real world is the language we use, which is kind of, slightly denigrating the report, but really that it doesn't have to reflect everything that we know we're doing amazing things and that we're changing lives for kids, and we don't have to report all of that in the report. So to further solidify the comment around keeping it short.
Thank you very much, Courtney, and go Pack Go. All right, we need one more to hit that 20. I was so excited about. I might be the only person who's as enthused about that, but I think we can get there.
I'll just throw in a comment. This may not be your 20, but I found that the evidence-based performance, the worksheet has been especially helpful for brand new directors because I've worked with a lot of them. And it's one place, they can look at the grant, but when they look at the worksheet, it just seems to be more helpful for them to understand the scope of the work and all the different components that go into it.
It's also more recent. It reflects what's actually happening, right, Cheryl?
Right.
Rather than this is what we proposed 5 years ago.
Right, because there's so much that just doesn't transfer. It just doesn't make the cut from an application to an implementation plan. We think we're doing an implementation plan in the application, but we're really not. But the worksheet really is where you get that real good view of what's going on and where you are.
Absolutely. I have definitely used it as an onboarding tool. And I think that also speaks to, not making it too repetitive so that people are happy and it's pleasant to read and not like a way to torture our brand new employees. Yeah.
Well, the first iteration of the worksheet was a bit repetitive. You remember that, Jason? And when it got worked over, a lot of that was removed, and some things were moved around that really seemed out of place where they were in the original. And so this is really a better document now.
Yeah, Cheryl is also one of the co-draftees of this new improved version. So, Cheryl, we didn't have too many complaints yet, but maybe it's because I've only left, 1 minute left here at the end for any kind of complaints because I was set on that number 20. Just kind of opening it up to the group. No need to raise your hand. We're a small enough group here. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Questions, comments? We've got 30 seconds, so someone can have the last word. It shouldn't be me. All right, Amy, maybe you should have the last word. 15 seconds. What would you say?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And maybe we can, share these out through, I don't know, the SPDIG newsletter or something, so everyone gets a chance to see them.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Welcome back, everyone. We're 5 minutes to the end of the program today. I want to take a minute and really make sure to thank all of the presenters who were willing to repeat their presentations from the national meeting. That's feedback that we get nearly every year is, hey, we've got these breakout presentations, but we can't go to all of them. We want to be able to attend all of them. And so this really means a lot to us to be able to not only repeat these so that you all can attend them virtually, But also, I should give a shout out to each of the presenters because they're helping record these as well. So thank you, presenters, for recording those. Go ahead and follow the instructions on sending those recordings into me, and I will get those posted to the website so that they're archived there and everybody can access them. So I guess to follow up that, I also want to thank Jennifer Coffey. She had to leave a little bit early, and so she's not here. But of course, thank you to Jennifer Coffey for helping organize all of these directors' webinars and facilitate them as well. So finally, thank you to everybody who participated in these discussions. I will be sending out a follow-up email that alerts people to the fact that we've got these recordings. And then once they're processed and gathered and posted to the website, I will send another email letting people know how and where to find those. So before we hang up today, are there any last questions or thoughts or comments?
As in the chat, a quick happy holidays to everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm happy to hear you point that out. Of course, happy holidays, and I wish everyone a great end to 2024, and I look forward to seeing people in 2025. Thanks a lot. Bye.